I was standing in line at the Starbucks on Main Street, my usual morning routine before heading to work, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my husband, the man I had spent the last 8 years building a life with. I want a divorce. All communication through my lawyer. That was it. No explanation. No warning. Just cold, clinical detachment. Like I was some business transaction he was eager to close. I stared at the message, blinking, as the barista called out someone's name. The world around me kept moving, orders being called, milk frothing, the smell of burnt espresso in the air, while my own life had just shattered into a million jagged pieces. I swallowed hard. No anger, no tears, just a sudden, biting clarity. I typed one word back. Understood. I slid my phone back into my purse, smiled politely at the woman behind me who was getting impatient, and stepped forward to order my drink like nothing had happened. Because if there was one thing I had learned growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, it was this: you handle your business with grace, even when your heart is breaking. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Elena Monroe, and up until that text, I thought I had the perfect life. Married young to Daniel Monroe, a man everyone in our tight-knit neighborhood admired, successful, charming, respected. We had the cute house with the wraparound porch, the golden retriever named Max, the matching Christmas pajamas for our Instagram posts. We were the couple everyone envied, or so I thought. Looking back, I realize now how many little cracks I ignored. The late nights at work, the sudden business trips, the way he started turning his phone over when he set it down. I told myself it was normal. I told myself we were just busy. I told myself every marriage had rough patches. What a fool I had been. As I walked out of Starbucks, coffee in hand, the Carolina sun warm against my skin, I felt something shifting inside me. Not sadness, not even rage. Something colder, something sharper. He thought he could humiliate me with a single text. He thought he could throw away nearly a decade of my life like I was disposable. Fine. He wanted to play dirty. He had no idea who he was dealing with. Because while Daniel was busy moving on with whoever he thought was better than me, I was already planning a little payback. And let me tell you, I don't do anything halfway. The funny thing about betrayal is that once you've been burned, the smoke never really clears. You start seeing things differently: the lies, the fake smiles, the hidden intentions. It's like you wake up with new eyes. 2 days after Daniel's cold-hearted text, I found myself sitting alone in our house. My house, wondering what my next move should be. I could cry, I could beg, I could spiral into some pathetic puddle of heartbreak, or I could remember exactly who I was. Elena Monroe, raised by a long line of Southern women who knew how to turn heartbreak into a goddamn art form. I chose option 2. It was a Friday evening when the first unexpected visitor showed up. I had just poured myself a glass of Pinot Grigio when the doorbell rang. Max, my golden retriever, barked once and trotted toward the door, tail wagging. When I opened it, I was greeted by none other than Edward Monroe, Daniel's father. He looked uncomfortable, standing there on my porch in a crisp white shirt and jeans, clutching a bottle of whiskey like a peace offering. "Elena," he said, clearing his throat. "Mind if I come in? I heard about what Daniel did. I just wanted to check on you." For a moment, I just stared at him. Edward was older, of course early 60s, but still handsome in that rugged, salt and pepper, distinguished way. He had the same sharp jawline as Daniel, but his eyes were softer, almost sad. I stepped aside wordlessly and let him in. We sat on the couch, sipping our drinks, talking about everything and nothing. Edward confessed he hadn't approved of how Daniel had handled things, that he'd raised his son better than that he was ashamed. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the months of loneliness leading up to this moment. Or maybe it was the way Edward looked at me. Really looked at me like I was more than just Daniel's wife. Like I was a woman. As the night wore on, the distance between us shrank. His hand brushed mine once, twice, and each time, neither of us pulled away. When he finally leaned in, hesitating just inches from my lips, I made the choice for both of us. I kissed him. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate. It was messy. It was exactly what I needed. By the time the sun rose over Charlotte, Edward Monroe was lying naked in my bed, his arms slung possessively across my waist, a soft smile tugging at his lips. And as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding in my chest. One thought burned hotter than all the rest. This was just the beginning. If guilt was supposed to eat me alive after what happened with Edward, it never even nibbled. Instead, I woke up feeling powerful. Daniel thought he could toss me aside without consequences. He had no idea how deep betrayal could cut or how wide I could make the wound. The next day, I got an invitation. It was laughable, really. A group text from Daniel's mother, Patricia Monroe, inviting me to a family gathering at her home. A barbecue. The Monroes' way of pretending everything was fine, fake smiles, overcooked burgers, and whispered gossip behind manicured hands. At first, I almost deleted the message, but then a delicious idea bloomed in my mind. Why not show up? Why not remind Daniel and everyone else that I wasn't going anywhere quietly? So that Sunday afternoon, I pulled on my best summer dress, tied my hair back in a lazy, effortless bun, and drove across town to the Monroe family estate. The second I stepped onto the sprawling backyard patio, I could feel the stares, pity from some, thinly veiled judgment from others. And then there was Uncle Rick. Technically, Richard Monroe was Daniel's uncle, his late father's younger brother, but growing up, everyone had just called him Uncle Rick. He was in his mid-40s, fit from years of working in construction, with sun-browned skin and a wolfish grin that made women giggle like teenagers. He spotted me instantly. "Well, if it isn't the prettiest girl in Charlotte," he said, wrapping me in a bear hug that lingered just a little too long. I laughed, pretending not to notice the way his hand slid a little lower than necessary along my back, pretending not to notice how his eyes lingered on the curve of my hips when he thought no one was looking. The afternoon dragged on tedious small talk, endless ribs and corn on the cob, but Rick kept finding excuses to be near me, freshening my drink, pulling out a chair beside me, brushing against me accidentally as he passed by. By the time dusk fell and the fairy lights strung across the patio flickered to life, I had made up my mind. I cornered him near the garage, where the shadows gave us some privacy. "You keep looking at me like you want something," I said, voice low and teasing. Rick's eyes darkened. "I think you know exactly what I want." "Then take it," I whispered, grabbing him by the front of his shirt and pulling him into the dark. His mouth crashed against mine, all heat and hunger, the roughness I'd secretly craved. Hands exploring, bodies pressed together, years of forbidden tension erupting like a dam finally breaking. There, against the side of the Monroe family's precious garage, Uncle Rick and I did things that would have made Daniel and the whole damn family scream if they knew. When it was over, Rick pulled me close, grinning like a devil. "Your trouble," he murmured. I smiled sweetly. "You have no idea." And as I fixed my dress and smoothed my hair before slipping back into the party, I knew one thing for certain: the best was still yet to come. I thought I was finished after Uncle Rick. I told myself I'd done enough, proven my point to Daniel, taught him a lesson in betrayal he'd never forget. But then I got another text. It was from Patricia Monroe, Daniel's mother. "Elena, we need to talk. I'm coming over tomorrow at p.m. I want to make sure you're okay." I read the message twice, trying to decipher what was behind it. Was this some kind of guilt trip? A plea for me to come back to the family and beg for forgiveness? Honestly, I didn't care. What I did care about was the fact that Patricia was one of the last people I ever expected to be on my radar. But I was getting a little tired of this charade. I'd already slept with her husband and her brother-in-law. Why not add her to the list? The next afternoon, I prepared myself like I was getting ready for a business meeting. Fresh face, but no makeup. Comfortable, but sexy. Sitting on the couch in the living room with a glass of iced tea, I waited. When the doorbell rang at exactly 2 o'clock, I opened it, welcoming her inside with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Hello, Elena," Patricia said, her voice smooth like velvet. She was dressed in a floral dress that screamed country club, and carried herself like a woman who knew exactly what power she wielded in a room. "Thank you for coming," I said, stepping aside. "Please, make yourself at home." She entered with the same quiet dignity I remembered from all those family gatherings, sitting across from me as if nothing had changed. She looked worried, but only just enough to make it seem real. Her eyes scanned the room, lingering on the empty space where Daniel's things used to be. "I'm sorry for how everything happened," she started, her voice shaky, like she was trying to play the part of the caring mother. I don't know what got into him. Daniel's always been difficult. I didn't respond. Instead, I just watched her, my eyes scanning every inch of her carefully composed face, looking for any crack in the facade. She had been a part of the lies after all. She'd been there, nodding approvingly while Daniel broke my heart over and over. She had never spoken up, never stepped in. And now, she was here, pretending to care, pretending to be the concerned mother. No, I wasn't buying it. I leaned forward. Patricia, I said calmly, eyes locking with hers. I don't need your sympathy. You want to help? You want to make sure I'm okay? I paused, watching her swallow, then stopped pretending. You know exactly what's going on here. Her face paled slightly, but she stayed silent. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, trying to figure out how far I would push. I could have walked away. I could have let the game end there. But then I realized something. I wasn't done yet. I stood up slowly, walking toward her. Her eyes followed me warily, a faint blush creeping up her neck. I leaned down, lips brushing her ear. Maybe you're not the one who needs to worry about your son, I whispered. Maybe you should be worried about yourself. Her breath hitched. I pulled back, watching her face crumble slightly. Patricia Monroe, the woman who had everything, suddenly looked a little less sure of herself. Think about that, I said, turning to leave the room. Just think about it. I knew I'd crossed a line, but I also knew there was no going back now. The real fun was just beginning. It had been a week since my encounter with Patricia. A week since I had walked away, leaving her stunned, vulnerable, her world teetering on the edge of everything she'd worked so hard to protect. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I watched them all, Daniel, his family, their every move. They thought they had me cornered, thought they had already broken me. But what they didn't realize was that I was just getting started. And now, it was time for the grand finale. The following Saturday, I sent a message to each of them. The family group chat I knew was still active, though they hadn't spoken to me in days. But I knew better than to beg for closure. No, I was going to make sure they begged me. I typed quickly, my fingers moving with cold precision. It's done. Everything. Divorce papers will be filed next week. All of you can thank yourselves for ruining this family. I paused for a moment, knowing the storm that would follow. Then I hit send. Within minutes, the floodgates opened. Daniel texted me frantically. What the hell are you talking about? Patricia called, her voice shaking, pleading, asking if I was serious. Uncle Rick, well, he sent a simple, "This isn't over, Elena." But none of them really understood the truth of it all. None of them saw what I had done. I had made sure that when Daniel went to file for divorce, there was nothing left for him. I had emptied our joint accounts, took everything that was rightfully mine, everything I'd worked for. I'd called in a favor from an old friend at the law firm, ensuring that when Daniel's lawyer received the papers, they'd come with a nice surprise. Proof of his infidelity, evidence of every lie, every betrayal. And it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about showing the world who he truly was. That night, when Daniel stormed into the house to confront me, his face twisted with rage, he didn't find the wife he thought he had destroyed. No, he found a woman who had rebuilt herself from the ashes of his lies, ready to finally be free. You think you can get away with this? Daniel yelled, his voice breaking. I stood in front of him, unshaken. I've been getting away with it all along. Patricia and Uncle Rick showed up next, but not to help him. They were there too, like moths to a flame, both of them walking into my house with broken expressions, desperate to understand what had just happened. I gave them the same cold smile I'd been wearing for weeks. You all thought I was the one who would fall apart, didn't you? I asked. You thought I'd be the one who couldn't take it. But here's the thing you never realized. I'm stronger than you ever gave me credit for. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't just getting revenge for myself. I was getting it for every woman who'd been told she wasn't enough. Every woman who'd been ignored, betrayed, taken for granted. I was showing them that we do have the power to take control of our own stories. And as I walked away from the house, leaving them to pick up the pieces of their broken lives, one question gnawed at me. If you were the one who had been betrayed, used, and left in the dust, would you settle for what they wanted you to believe? Or would you take your life back, no matter the cost?